idea.
Go Travis from Australia.
It should be Vance Honeycutt. Because he's a Tar Heel and he's the man. O's win tomorrow, 7-2. We take 2 out of 3.
And what about the draft? That's tomorrow.
The draft, that's tomorrow. I have no idea, but we're going to pick somebody that's going to change this franchise and take us to a World Series.
Orioles prediction, they're drafting Braden Smith, round 17, pick 45.
The best one they can find.
Well, some varying reviews there from Orioles fans. We'll be on the lookout for round 17, I think it was, that some O's fans were looking out for. We won't see that tonight, but maybe in the future. I don't know. We'll see who the Orioles take there.
10 years down the road.
Yeah, exactly. So, Annie, with how the draft board is shaking out right now, there are a lot of good college bats still available. You mentioned guys like Ryan Waldschmidt and Vance Honeycutt, Tommy White, Billy Amick there as well. The strength of this draft class, it seemed like, was really in the depth of the college bats around this range.
Yeah, definitely. And with the Orioles, that's obviously the way that they like to go in the drafts. It makes it a little bit difficult when you do have a college hitter-heavy draft. At least that's what Sig Mejdal thought going into this, because those top college bats would be gone potentially by pick 22. But as we know, there's lots of high school bats being picked this so far. So it's kind of going in Orioles' favor right now with Ryan Waldschmidt still available, Vance Honeycutt. Those two, I think, are on the top of my board, maybe on the top of the Orioles' boards right now, given their exit velocities combined with their contact rates.
Yeah, let's talk about those two college outfielders, because at pick 20, the Blue Jays go with Trey Savage, the pitcher out of East Carolina. Slipped a little bit, but Toronto gets him at 20, which means if the Orioles wanted to go with a college outfielder, Ryan Waldschmidt and Vance Honeycutt, one of those guys will be available at pick 22. If the Orioles had their pick, which direction do you think they would go here?
I think Waldschmidt, he's a really good option. He's coming from the SEC at Kentucky, so that's really good experience to come from in college athletics. He also came in with a 92% in the zone contact rate and a 93 average velocity. I mean, you cannot beat that combo of bat to ball skills and exit velocity. That's just insane. But if you were to go to the Vance Honeycutt route, coming from UNC, he has every tool except for the hit tool. He has a 60 grade power, 65 grade run, 60 grade arm, and 65 grade field. So he is kind of a jack of all trades there, but minus the hit tool. We saw this with Jordan Westburg not long ago in 2020, where he had a lot of strikeout rates. So the Orioles were able to shape him into that type of player that he is today. So I think the Orioles would be able to take that on with Vance Honeycutt as well. Yeah, and if the Orioles end up with a hitter in the similar ilk to Jordan Westburg, I think they would be very happy with this pick at number 22. But you bring up a good point there with Honeycutt, where, yeah, there are swing and miss concerns. You don't know if the contact is exactly there. But if there's one organization that could get a guy like Vance Honeycutt to be the type of hitter you would want him to be at the next level, it is the Baltimore Orioles. And Annie, you took a look back at just how good this Orioles development system has been. The Orioles have the 22nd draft pick this year, the latest ever in the first round in the Mike Elias era. And of course, this means that O's records have been improving year after year, but it also means that players on Elias and Co.'s draft boards might not still be there come pick 22. And sure, luck and the right decision-making criteria play a huge part into teams' draft success, but for Baltimore, they have a clear competitive advantage in player development. For VP of Player Development and Domestic Scouting Matt Blood, cohesion is key.
We're not drafting players for reason X and then the player development saying, no, we like reason Y, we're going to completely change them. No, we're all on the same page, and we have a lot of efficiency when it comes to the player's development.
Orioles draft success has come from very different pick numbers. Adley Rutschman was a top overall pick in 2019, but Gunnar Henderson was 42nd overall that year, and Jordan Westburg was selected 30th in 2020. So ultimately, the development team has had to mold these guys into a Baltimore Oriole, regardless of how early on they were selected.
Jordan Westburg had a pretty high strikeout rate. He had a pretty high swing and miss rate at Mississippi State, I believe. That was probably 2019. Baltimore has done a really nice job with a swing change there, and they've turned him into a very, very good pro.
Thanks to a stat that Brendan Mortensen found, Henderson and Rutschman have been the two most valuable draft picks in the last 5 years, given their baseball reference WARs of 13.4 and 12.8. Wins above replacement essentially quantifies the production of a player compared to one that would be available to replace him. With that quantified number, teams then get an idea of how much to pay that player. And by the looks of these all-stars in Rutschman, Henderson, and Westburg, the O's front office has certainly sought out a few different things when drafting them.
The physicality stands out as something that, you hope they're coming into professional baseball with. We definitely believe that we can teach a quality approach. We can help influence your swing decisions and what you're choosing to swing at. It's nice to see that trait show up in college and tends to be pretty sticky year over year.
Ultimately, we need to continue a pipeline of talent, and to do that, we need to continue to draft well, not just in the first round, but throughout the draft, which we've been able to do so far. And we need to develop these players very well. And that's what I talk about with efficiency of development. We need to give these players the best chance possible.
Well, Andy, the Baltimore Orioles are officially on the clock with pick 22 here in the MLB Draft. We just saw Kalen Culpepper go to the Minnesota Twins at number 21, the shortstop out of Kansas State. That was a name we saw in a lot of mock drafts for the Orioles, but truthfully, as we were kind of leading into this process, Culpepper was a name that I don't think the Orioles would have drafted that type of archetype of player. Didn't have a ton of power on the Cape Cod League, the wood bats, kind of the bat died a little bit. So Kalen Culpepper goes 21 to the Twins. He will not be the Orioles selection at number 22. Let's talk about some guys who are left. I want to start with Brody Brecht, the pitcher out of Iowa. Yes, the Orioles have gone college hitter in the first round in the past. If they were looking for upside out of a pitcher, yes, Brody Brecht has a lot of question marks, but if they were looking for pure upside, there may not be a better pitcher in this draft.
Yeah, Brecht was on a lot of mock drafts to go to the Orioles, which I find surprising given the Orioles' past in first-round drafts of always going college hitters and every now and then the high school hitter. He does, like you said, his upside is really high, but that's if he can get it into the strike zone. Other than that, he doesn't have great command right now. He has been compared with his fastball and his slider to Paul Skeens, so there is that praise there for the first rounder last year. But I don't necessarily see the Orioles going a pitcher. I mean, who knows at this rate? But Mike Elias has never gone first round, even when he was with Houston.
Yeah, at this point, given the Orioles' success in their recent track record, if it ain't broke, right? If the college hitters work in the first round, we would kind of anticipate the Orioles are going to continue to go down that route. Let's talk about another college hitter. That's Tommy Tanks. We know the Orioles like to hit home runs. Tommy White, the third baseman, we'll call him a third baseman, doesn't have much defensive upside there, might need a shift over to first base. But if you believe the hit tool is good enough, the defense athleticism aren't really there, but if the hit tool is good enough, Tommy White could be the Orioles selection.
Yeah, the LSU product, huge baseball powerhouse college, and he has a 60 grade power. He is overly aggressive at the plate, but he doesn't whiff a lot, so that's a good sign for the Orioles. Like you said, physicality is a trait that the Orioles tend to look for, and athleticism. He doesn't necessarily have that, but I could also see the Orioles falling with him and working on that with him in the player development system.
Yeah, he's not necessarily the kind of athlete that the Orioles usually draft. But again, Heston Kjerstad back in 2020, when the Orioles took him second overall, he brings you a little bit more defensive value as a corner outfielder. He's still solid out there, I think better than most people expected coming out of the draft. But the Orioles drafted Heston Kjerstad because of the bat. And if they go with Tommy White here at number 22, that would be the same rationale. Not a ton of defensive upside. He's not going to be the best athlete, but the dude can just flat out hit. I think one surprise of this draft so far, Annie, too, there was a trio of really talented college catchers. None of them have gone so far. I know the Orioles don't really need that position, certainly at the big league level. You've got Samuel Basallo as well. But we know in the draft, you don't really draft for position of need. Those are just three really talented players.
Yeah, Caleb Lomavita being one of them from Cal. He doesn't necessarily have much besides being an incredible athlete. And then also in the Cape Cod Baseball League, he hit very well 2 years in a row. So there is that experience with wooden bats that you can count on coming from college to professional ball. And he also hit 979 OPS his sophomore year. So this guy does hit very well. In terms of catching abilities, you're right. You have Samuel Basallo, you have Adley Rutschman already in the bigs right now. So I'm not sure that there's a need just yet for a catcher. But if you did want a hitter, you would be drafting Caleb Lomavita for that possibility.
Yeah, I think Lomavita makes a lot of sense. There's also guys like Walker Yannick out of Sam Houston. Malcolm Moore is a really talented left-handed catcher out of Stanford as well. A lot of scouts had said, hey, if we believe that this guy can be a catcher defensively, he could have been a top 10 pick in tonight's draft. We're still waiting for the Orioles selection here at number 22 as they are on the clock. A couple of more college hitters that could be in consideration here. Billy Amick, the third baseman out of Tennessee, was the former Clemson product, so it could be a few years in a row here where we see the Orioles take a third baseman out of Clemson. We saw it with Max Wagner a couple of years ago. And then one intriguing name that we've seen to the Orioles at 22 sometimes, but mostly at 32, if the Orioles believe in the talent, they could take him here. And that's Dakota Jordan, the outfielder out of Mississippi State. That's another player who, hey, the sky is the limit if you can get him to reach his potential.
If the O's don't take him at 22, I sure hope he's still around by 32 because I really like Dakota Jordan for the Orioles. He is a pure athlete. He's a big guy right there, and he is also 21 years old, so he has a lot of upside. He has every tool, though, except for his hit tool. We talked about that a little bit with Vance Honeycutt. For Dakota Jordan, that's like him, but I do think, given his athleticism, he is a good mold for the Orioles come pick 32.
Well, Annie, the pick is in for the Orioles at number 22, and it is Vance Honeycutt, the center fielder out of North Carolina. This pick just makes too much sense for Baltimore. We talked about it leading up to the pick. His only question mark is the contact rates. And the Orioles, if you're going to be in a player development system that can get that contact rate under control, can help you make better swing decisions, this is the place to be. I think this is an absolute home run for the Orioles here. Vance Honeycutt, when you look at the grades, it's 60 grade power, a 65 grade run tool, 60 grade arm, 65 grade fielding. If you can get the strikeout rate down, this could be a 5-tool player at the next level.
If you're an Orioles fan, you might not be surprised by this pick because he does fit that mold of a college outfielder for the Orioles, and I really like this pick. I'm really happy with this, and that he even fell to the Orioles at this point. Like you said, almost every tool in the box except for his hit tool. And not to mention, he was a 2-time ACC Defensive Player of the Year, so he has that defensive ability that the Orioles tend to like out in outfield, that speed as well. Again, the only issue is that strikeout rate and swing and miss rate, but like Jordan Westburg, they fixed that. They worked on that. And even here, Vance Honeycutt has a lot more raw power than Jordan Westburg did at that stage. So this is something to look ahead to for the Orioles player development system, and a really good pick at number 22.
If there was a team that was going to swing for the fences, it should have been the Baltimore Orioles. And this is exactly what they do at number 22, drafting a player like Vance Honeycutt. He could go for 20 homers, 20 stolen bases at the big league level. This is the kind of upside that we are talking about with the North Carolina center fielder. But really, I think whatever player the Orioles took here at number 22, there was a pretty good chance he was going to be darn good, because the Orioles, since Mike Elias and company took the reins in 2019, have been the best drafting team in baseball, flat out. Here's a look back at the O's success of the last 5 years.
Gunnar Adley and Jordan Westburg going to the All-Star game that just got drafted so many years ago that he drafted. That's unbelievably rare.
This isn't normal. That's not just a manager hyping up his team. It's truly hard to believe just how good the Orioles have been in the MLB Draft since 2019, when Mike Elias and company took the reins. Think of some recent World Series winners. Sure, you've got the Rangers, who spent big on stars in free agency. The Braves hit huge on the international market. But teams like the Cubs, Astros, Royals, Giants, they all had a core built from the draft. And take a look outside here at Camden Yards. That's exactly what the Orioles are building. Take a look at the lineup card on any given day in 2024. You'll see the names Gunnar Henderson, Adley Rutschman, Jordan Westburg, Heston Kjerstad, and Colton Cowser more often than not, all drafted in the last 5 years. And Jackson Holliday and Kobe Mayo aren't too far behind. Now, I know this has become the new normal in Birdland, but it's important to zoom out and recognize just how special this is. As of July 1st, here's how Orioles draft picks since 2019 stack up against other teams over that same time period. It's not even close. There's one other team in baseball with a combined WAR over 20, 2 teams in the game with even half as much WAR as the O's. Okay, just for fun, let's make some tweaks to this leaderboard. Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson, on their own, have combined for more career WAR than the 29 other teams' draft picks since 2019. And I'm sure you've probably heard the claim that the O's are only this successful because of their high draft picks. So just for good measure, there's how Baltimore stacks up if you took away all of their first selections from the last 5 drafts. So that's no Adley, Kjerstad, Cowser, or Holiday. Doesn't matter. The Orioles are just flat out better. So how is all of this happening? I don't know. It's some magical combination of great scouting, better drafting, outstanding development, and some luck thrown in there too. Let's start with the scouting and drafting. In 2019, Adley Rutschman was a slam dunk kind of prospect. He got walked with the bases loaded in the College World Series. He drew Buster Posey and Joe Mauer comparisons. That one seems hard to miss on. But Heston Kjerstad was MLB Pipeline's 10th ranked prospect heading into the 2020 draft. The O's took him second, and he's got a higher career WAR than Spencer Torkelson and Austin Martin combined. The guys ranked number 1 and number 2. Colton Cowser was ranked 10th too when the O's took him at number 5 in 2021. Even with the number 1 pick in 2022, the now number 1 overall prospect Jackson Holiday wasn't the number 1 prospect leading into the draft. That was Drew Jones. So yes, the Orioles have had high picks, but they've still been able to identify their guy. And let's not forget that every team in baseball could have drafted All-Stars Gunnar Henderson and Jordan Westburg. Henderson was a second-rounder in 2019. Westburg went at pick 30 in 2020. Heck, Kobe Mayo went 103rd, which leads to the next part of the equation. Yes, you have to identify the talent, but once they're in the organization, there might not be a better place for a prospect to be.
And that's part of, I would say, our competitive advantage, is that we're not drafting players for reason X and then the player development saying, no, we like reason Y, we're going to completely change it. We're all on the same page, and we have a lot of efficiency when it comes to player development.
And yes, a lot of that successful formula has centered around drafting and developing position players. The O's have drafted a lot of them in the top rounds because they know what works. Drafting pitchers is hard. There's a lot of misses on young arms at the top of the draft. And some of those drafted position players have helped Baltimore acquire talent like, former Cy Young winners. The Orioles are experts at not only identifying the kind of talent that they can develop, but putting that plan into action. After years of boasting the top farm system in baseball, Baltimore is seeing the fruits of that labor up in the big leagues. And by the way, farm system is still stacked. 3 top 15 prospects in the game in Jackson Holiday, Samuel Basayo, and Kobe Mayo.
And to be able to restock the system so quickly and to get guys through the system that can produce at the major league level such early on in their careers is, I don't think I've never seen anything like it.
Look, I asked what the secret sauce was. Nobody told. But whatever the recipe may be, nobody is cooking it up better than Baltimore.
Well, the best drafting team in baseball of the last 5 years just added a huge upside prospect in Vance Honeycutt. But Annie, the Orioles are not done tonight. They've got another pick coming up just 10 picks from now at number 32. Thanks to Gunnar Henderson winning Rookie of the Year last year, the Orioles get an incentive pick. And for a team like the Orioles that drafts as well as they do, having another pick in the top 35 just feels unfair. But there are still a lot of talented hitters on the board. Who are some names, Andy, that you're hoping to see fall to that O's pick at 32?
Well, with just 10 picks left, there's still a lot that I think could be an Oriole and be molded super well into a Baltimore player. First, that's Dakota Jordan. I love this outfielder from Mississippi State, An incredible athlete, and his power bat speed combo is just insane. But aside from that, you got the Ryan Waldschmidt from Kentucky, the Billy Amick from Tennessee. These are 2 guys that could also be molded into an Oriole. And on the high school side of things, there's also Wyatt Sanford, the shortstop. So if you wanted to get them at a younger pace and develop them as a shortstop like they've done with Jackson Holiday and Gunnar Henderson, there's that route as well.
Well, we'll see who the Orioles take at number 32. The night is already off to a very exciting start with adding the right-handed center fielder, Vance Honeycutt out of North Carolina. We've got more analysis coming up for you tonight after the Orioles pick at number 32. Look, it's a tight turnaround here between 22 and 32. We're getting you more analysis as quickly as we can. We're going to have an exclusive interview with Sig Mejdal, the Orioles assistant GM and vice president. That's coming up after the Orioles selection at number 32. So after this show, make sure you stay locked in on all of our MASN Orioles social pages. That interview with Sig Mejdal coming after the Orioles pick at 32. And then if you thought we were done there, you're wrong. We've got more Orioles draft content coming your way tonight with the Bird's Nest. Myself and Andy Klaff will be back just across the hall in the podcast room in a little bit, talking about the Orioles selections at number 22 and number 32. Thank you so much for following along with us live here on MASN All Access for the O's pick at number 22 with Vance Honeycutt. We love reading your comments, and we hope you can stick with us for the Bird's Nest later tonight as we break down both of these Orioles picks even more in depth. So if you love the MLB Draft as much as I'm sure you do, you're not going to want to miss that. Big thank you to Bobby Blanco and Amy Jennings behind the scenes for producing this one. For Andy Klaff, I'm Brendan Mortensen, and we'll see you later tonight.